Hello, happiness abounder, and welcome back. So, as we maintain this chat that we've been having all about how to improve our relationships, I think there's a key component that, as you know, if you follow the building of each of these 5 episode theme weeks, usually I get to the nitty gritty stuff more towards the end, kind of easing you into it, right? And that's not just to ease you into it, it's also to ease me into being able to share those deeper level stories and those deeper techniques. So if you've been following along, we've talked about putting our phone down, we've spoken about swaying with your partner, giving up sarcasm, and today is another biggie, and it's all about forgiveness. Now, we know we should forgive people, but if you really want to improve your relationships, you can't hold on to anything. And that's really hard. So hard. So, I want to share a story about that. When I was 15 or so, fun little side story. So, my husband and I actually dated when we were in high school, broke up. He's 2 years older than I am, so he graduated, we broke up. After I graduated, he ended up getting married. I ended up getting married, both to other people. And then our first marriages pretty much disintegrated, and we were able to reconnect and get back together for the second time. We've been together ever since, and we'll be married for, I believe, 7 years this December. So when we dated in high school, some stuff went down when we broke up that just wrecked me. You know, I'm a high school girl. Any breakup at that point in time will wreck you, but this wrecked me. So when we got back together this second time around, much older, wiser, both with other marriages under our belt, things seemed much better. And I thought that I had forgiven him. And it wasn't until we were about 4 years in on dating the second time around that we had had an argument. And I remember it very distinctly. We were in the car. We had had an argument, and we were kind of in this business complex that was by where our house was. And he said to me, "Look, if you can't forgive me for what happened way back when we were together the first time, this isn't going to work." And my first reaction, because if you remember, I used to be a very angry and not open-minded person, was like, "What? It's your fault. Why should I forgive you?" And I just wanted to take it to that next level of anger. And that, well, why should I forgive you? You're the one that caused this problem. When in reality, I wasn't anywhere near the same person I was when I was 15, 16, when we dated the first time. And so it was very harsh of me to continue to hold on to that pain when he wasn't that same person either. Remember, we were older, we were wiser, we had other marriages under our belts. We had had failed relationships with each other and with other people. And that can take several forms. But here he was coming to me. And he even said this too, that there's things I've done, which that was hard for me to swallow too. Like, no, you're the one that's done everything wrong in the relationship. But he's like, there's things you've done that I've forgiven you for. But if you can't forgive me for what happened to us before, at this point it was like 8 years after all of it went down, he's like, there's no chance for us. And that was so eye-opening. Because I thought we were over it, but anytime we'd have an argument, I would refill that pain because I hadn't let go of it. And because I would refill it all over again, it would send me into this memory mode, and then I'd want to lash out and blame him and yell at him, and it would just exacerbate our fights. And it would prolong so many things, and it would just build upon this anger and this frustration, and I couldn't forgive him. I couldn't forgive him because I couldn't see it. So when he called me out on that, and I'm so glad he did, I realized that I had been holding on to this, and he was right. Did I really want to live in this anger and this fear and never forgive him? So this resentment for the entirety of our relationship, because it would eat away at us. So luckily I was able to forgive him and able to let go. Now, a lot of that came from writing out the story of what happened, because I'd kept it up in my head for so long because I didn't want to forget that I'd been jilted in some way, shape, or form. And I felt like if I kept that story in my head, then I would never forget it, and then I could call on it whenever I needed to so that I wouldn't find myself in that situation again. But what I was doing was keeping it in my head, evolving that story to add in any other time he'd ever done anything that I would deem quote unquote wrong, and adding to that. And so I was building this catalog of this story about this person that I loved that I couldn't forgive them. So when I wrote it all out, it was like, great, if I ever need to come back to this, I can. But now it's out of my head, out of my body. And I can see things more clearly, and I'm not building this catalog. Instead, I'm filling a new catalog with love and calm conversations and forgiving conversations. And that was one of the big turning points for our relationship. Now, that's obviously the shortened down version, but here's what this is the message I want to convey to you. Are there little things, and this pertains to any relationship, it does not have to be your romantic partner or spouse, but I think we do hold on to this the most with those individuals in our lives. But are there things that you are holding on to that you may not be aware of until this episode, that you're holding on to so that you don't have to forgive someone for the pain that they have caused you? Now, I say this is open to anything because you could have a coworker who's done something that you don't agree with, or that they maybe took credit for your work, or maybe they took your work, said that it was great, and then 2 weeks later came out with a game plan modeled exactly off the work you did, but also different enough that they could claim it as their own, and then said that that was the new plan. Yeah, I've had that happen. And you have to figure out how to let that go, because you can't deal with that person anymore. Anytime they do anything wrong, it builds on that story. So it doesn't matter if it's work, if it's your romantic partner. Start to look for those little things that you're like, my husband calls it loading his gun, in a way of, like, you did this thing wrong, that's a bullet into the barrel. You did this thing wrong, you did this thing wrong, you did this thing wrong. And then when that is filled up, that's when you explode. That's when you cause major damage, because you weren't able to let go of those things. Instead, you've been loading the gun, right? So I just want you to pay attention to those things in your life. And they are, it's feelings, it's emotions, it's aggressions. And even I am not a saint. Like, I share this because I struggle with it. And I may not struggle with it so much with my husband anymore, but I just shared a story where I had it happen at work, and I need to figure out how to forgive that person so that I can continue to work in a positive and happy environment, instead of anytime that person does anything, I am in a space of judgment, resentment, and anger. It can happen in so many arenas of relationships in our lives, but it's up to us. And that's the big thing. You can't care what they did that slighted you, because then you are punishing yourself by holding on to anger and resentment and not forgiving them. You're punishing yourself. You're not punishing them by trying to remember all the little things that they've done that were wrong in the world. You're just bringing down your own happiness because you want justice for what you think it should be. I wanted justice for my husband's past transgressions towards me, and I realized that justice had happened. We had all moved on, but somehow I felt like I needed some extra, and who am I to need that? It's his life, and I don't need to keep on bringing these things up if I want our relationship to thrive. Not only for him, but for me as well. So I want you to pay attention to that. Look at how you have some areas to forgive in your life, and then to have that forgiveness and to let go. I recommend writing it out so it's out of your body, out of your mind, but you're not feeling like you're just getting rid of it. You can always come back to it if you need to, if you ever did need to recall it, but I guarantee you won't. So I'm going to leave you with that today. I hope you have a wonderful day. Remember to look for those areas of forgiveness, and remember, you are capable of happiness abound.